So obviously I need to supply parts for this, but I'm also gonna have a bunch of leftover parts. So that's good. I've got some couplers here. Micro trains made in the USA. I bought two packs like this. Yeah, this one's the new pack and this one's the pack I started using. So I've got my couplers and I also got new stuff from Kato. And that stuff is great. I got a brand new body, bought the whole thing. Unfortunately, the parts, got some trucks. I got two of them. While I was ordering that, I got a little bit more, a little bit extra stuff. I got a F7 rear truck. So I got a whole bunch of stuff while I was there, but hopefully enough to get this guy going. I did use one of the couplers for this. I had another RS2 that was missing a coupler, so I did use the coupler on this end for that. So on this guy, I'm gonna want to use the micro trains. The problem is the micro trains will not fit in this little box. I have to enlarge it, but I can do it. So this whole body shell here I'm going to keep around for parts, but it does look like the handrail set is in perfect shape despite missing a whole bunch of stuff. So that definitely can be used to repair an engine. Sometimes, you know, these engines, they get dropped. The horn's also in really good shape. Sometimes these engines, they get dropped and you'll find the ends here get buggered up, but usually the cab is okay. So I'm going to keep this body shell just in case I need it, and we'll get to work on painting this little guy. Also in the box was the Rapido couplers that were provided with the engine, so that's good. I'm not going to need that. I have a bunch of stuff still that runs on Rapido couplers, especially my favorites. I have a bunch of Bachmann. I have a ton of Bachmann freight cars. They have metal wheels and Rapido couplers. Oh yeah, this is the reason why people like these engines so much. It's because they are DCC friendly. You just replace this board with a DCC board, and you're up and running. You know, it's a 5-minute project. But geez, these handrails are in good shape. So that is awesome. So I'm keeping that together. That's going to be to repair another one. We'll see down the road what I can find. Kato engines last a long time. I've had some that are 30 plus years old. They're still going. The stuff that is more than 30 years old, usually on the bottom they print Sekishui Kinzoku, which is Kato's old name, and they were marketed by Concor. They were good, but the power pickup's not the same. After 40-50 years, they probably do. Anyways, this stuff, I have to find another contact strip, so I'm gonna try a contact strip for a GP9. But first we're gonna work on the shell. So I have to get this ready for painting. I have to remove the handrails. I suppose you could leave them there. Let's say you're painting the engine red, you leave the handrails there. They will just turn red. So I'm gonna remove the couplers. These Kato couplers, they sure get the job done. I'm gonna put in micro trains. They're just a little bit better. You know what, I've got to split the shell to remove all the glass and all that stuff. So I'm just gonna split the shell again. We'll remove the handrails, and that will make it easier to get to the couplers. And then to remove the handrails, just pry under the step here, and that will release the handrails. The plastic is still easy to move, to bend, you know, even on the older 30 plus years old engine. That is high quality plastic. So that we'll put there. I'm gonna have a parts box there full of goodies. That makes it a lot easier to get in there and remove that step. You only want to use a certain amount of strength on these. Definitely use restraint. Yeah, the other week I was working with my chainsaw. I was having a ball. The chainsaw is the opposite of working on your end scale. There's no restraint there. Although you have to be careful. It's kind of a dangerous sport there. And I do not own chainsaw pants, but for some reason I still very much enjoyed it. So we'll get these little parts out of the way, because we are going to be removing the glass here too. That's another thing here. You want to take your time, use restraint, especially with the cab. I mean, if I wreck, let's say I wrecked the sill, I've got a replacement one, but I don't have a replacement cab. So yeah, remove the lights from here. Let's see if they'll pop out. They will pop out. That is amazing. I couldn't get them to pop out. No matter what I did, I used a toothpick. I put the shell in hot water, and I used a toothpick, pushed as hard as I could, broke the toothpick. So instead of, I mean, I still have my chainsaw. I could go get my chainsaw, but instead of breaking everything, I am just going to mask it. I have no choice, because I was putting a little bit of effort there. Look at this fan detail though. You can see it's just molded in, but they did a good job. Okay, so that's that. I'm gonna let that dry. And then I'm gonna try this on the bench just to make sure that the motor's working. And then we'll move on to making room for the couplers. I'm on the very low setting of the power pack. So as you can see, it runs very smooth and quiet, just like a Kato should. So we'll work on the body for now, and then we'll get back to this now that I know it's gonna work. But to adjust my coupler height, I'm gonna need to have the both trucks in there. Now to change out the trucks, you don't need to take everything apart. You just open up the screws just a bit. That's going to give you enough slack to get in here. This too goes into the parts bin. If I ever have a need for one again, I will find it. So I chose the RS2 trucks just for a variety, because I have two RS2 already. So that bag is sealed. That's okay, I've got the tools for that. So that's brand new, no need to clean it. The reason why I like Kato so much is they just have this enthusiasm, you know, about making the trains run so smoothly. Does this have an arrow? Yeah, it sure does. Look at that. They make it easy for you. Yes, I got the RS2 just for variety, which was maybe a mistake because the decals I have is Pennsylvania Railroad and Penn Central, and they did not have an RSC2. So that's gonna look a little weird, you know, but it will be okay because they did have an RSD 12. Oh yeah, this won't work. For sure, for sure. The arrow goes to the outside. Well, isn't that something, eh? Maybe they had a different frame for the RSC2. I'm gonna fool around with this for a little bit more. See, on the front one, on this one, it works great. But on this one, I'm having a little trouble. I trimmed the gearbox here just a little bit. It used to be square, so that should get me by. Yep, it looks great now. So the reason why I needed to put these in at this time, it's because I'm gonna need the chassis to be in one piece so I can check the coupler height. I buy these unassembled in the big packages because it's cheaper. Don't be too intimidated by doing these. Once you do a couple, you get into the rhythm and it becomes easier. I was lucky to find some brown ones. Oh, there goes that part on the floor. Happens to all of us. Yeah, that's also good advice. If you can sweep your floor before you start. The toughest part is these little springs. They come to life and they can bounce out. They can go far. And I've got the two spacers there. I don't think I'm going to need them on this project. There's two spacers over here. I don't think I'm going to need them. But you keep them around, you never know. Okay, so let me just put that all together. See, now I told you it wasn't that hard. Now I got it all set up. Works perfectly. I got my micro trains height gauge to check that I didn't put it upside down. So here's my problem. I want to fit that in that hole, and the hole is too small. So now I have to decide if I'm going to open up from the bottom or from the top. So that's why I needed my chassis together. I'm using gravity just to dangle the coupler box over, and it seems the Kato box is way low, so I have to dig the upper part. I would come in with the Dremel, and that does quite a bit of damage, but I think I got the height not bad. I am using the spacer on the bottom. Here, I'll let you have a closer look. So I'm using the spacer at the bottom, and I think I got it to where I'm happy. This you can see a few marks on the front pilot, but once it's painted, it shouldn't be too bad. That was a little bit of work actually, but I came in from the back and I dug it in. Still have to work on this side yet, but it's coming together. Now I got this side the way I wanted it. So now I can go ahead and paint this. To mask out the headlight, I use some regular school glue. Don't use the carpenter's glue because it's much stronger than you think. And don't forget to mask out behind. So that's going to be ready for painting. I like painting with the handrails off. More and more I use this technique where I'll roll up some normal scotch tape and just take an old piece of cardboard, stick that inside the engine, and it will hold the engine properly while I paint. So I can get under here and paint everything. But that is ready to paint. I test my spray cans more and more before I start. A model of this quality, yeah, like this nozzle's pathetic. A model of this quality, you should use a new spray can, but I need to get rid of these old ones. So I'm gonna finish them up. So you start with just droplets. And as the droplets come together, you stop. I had to focus a little bit on what I was doing, so I stopped taping. But once you get to this point, all the droplets touch each other. You just leave it be and consider that good, and then don't touch it for a couple of days. I like the spray cans because you don't have to clean them after. If I had used my airbrush, I would have to clean it up. So that's it. I'm gonna let this dry. Perfect. While my shell is drying, I've got to figure out this missing contact strip here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try if a contact strip from a GP7 or GP9 will work. I've got this little guy I've been using for parts for a few years actually. And interestingly enough, this is a very good custom paint of an engine that's been used in the Midwest. So I'm definitely keeping the shell, although I have been using the drive for parts for a long time. So it still has a bunch of good parts in it. But let's see about using this contact strip here. It's gonna be the correct length for sure. This one's a TT unit, so it's got a long fuel tank. The air tanks are up, fuel tanks are up on the roof. So I'll just put that down for now. Let's see if this contact strip is going to be close to fitting. I just cleaned them like that. Let's see if that's going to fit in here. That would solve my problem. It's looking good so far. Of course, the real test is going to be on the track. But it looks like it's going to be close. So I'm going to put that up off camera. It looks good. Looks like it's going to work. And then we'll go try it on the track. Works very smooth and quiet, just like a Kato should. That was really very lucky. So now I'm just going to lubricate this and we'll be ready to go back and work on the shell. Probably it's the paint is dry by now. Look at that, I received a nice letter in the mail. One of the subscribers sent me this. It's the plan for the old Mikado. Plan for the old Mikado. And an extra driver with the traction tire. So that was very nice, most appreciated. And I'll be using it for sure. One of the further videos, one of the videos later on that I'll do. So since this runs already super nice, I'm still gonna take it apart to lubricate it, but really I wouldn't need to that much. So obviously these, like I said before, they're really appreciated because they are DCC compatible. I just have to get my circuit board over the little hump. Oh, it's this LED that's hooked up on the frame. I'm not going to change it, but I'm just going to get it over the hump. So that's over that hump. Now I have to worry about the two little ears, have them go over the hump. Yeah, I did not realize this was maybe a little bit tough to get out. So yeah, if you want to switch it to DCC, just switch out the board and you're on DCC. And then we'll open up the frame here. I'm gonna open it up all the way just to have a look inside. So this, even though it was a basket case, internally it's very good. Yeah, I'll let the two screws fall out. And then it's held in by the two little snaps from the engine cradle. So this RS2 or RSC2 has a very specific motor with very specific flywheels that only it has. So if you have a bad motor, you have to specifically get a motor for that. So everything's really good in here. I'll just put one drop of oil just to say that I did something. And that's all you need, just 4 drops. The trucks, they're brand new, so there's no need to do any work on that. Even though I had to throw a lot of parts at this, it's still a very rewarding project. Mainly because I started with a basket case. And it wasn't too bad. Whenever I get to this point, I just make sure that nothing's rubbing, but that seems fine. I'm gonna start putting the screws back. You could put the trucks first and then the screws second, I'm just gonna put the screws first, and I don't tighten them. Oh yeah, my little bearing ran away. It was still on the table, it just managed to go somewhere where I couldn't see it. So yeah, hold these in, and then you can put your screws back in. So you want to just start them. Just start them, and then we'll put the contact strips and the fuel rail. Yeah, the Kato website is still down. Well, while we're on the subject of websites, if you'd like to buy if you'd like to buy this one, I'm going to have it up on my website. It's watchtrainsnow.com. And then I'll put the little, oh, I forgot to put my contact strips. It's a lot easier when there's nothing there, when there's no trucks in. A lot easier to do that at this point. And then I'll even put the fuel tank. The fuel tank, there's an obvious spot for it because of these air tanks. Because of these two air tanks, there's an obvious spot for the fuel tank. Whoops, my contact strip left. That's not good. Yeah, and you do want to take your time to get them just perfect before you button everything up. And then the fuel tank will hold them in place, because that's its job. Checking for my arrow. There we go. And then the front side. You know, I call the front this part with the cab, but really these were usually long hood front. So I wonder if that New York Central cab had the little F on the long hood. This was an early rule that's been around for a long time, that rule that they have to put an F at the front. And they still have that today. But it started with the early diesels. Mechanically, a diesel doesn't really have a front or a rear. That's a convention that the government and the railroads put together to have a front and a rear. Because for the engine, it's the same. Yeah, look at that. It's got a little F here at the front. So I'll be sure to put that when I do my custom paint for Pennsylvania. Make sure to have my little F. So that feels actually very, very good. If I were smart, I would take it down on the track and test it out before I put the shell on. But I think I'm gonna go test it out with the shell on. I have confidence in that. Maybe it's not smart, but on this side, the contact pin, it just goes in there very easily. On this side, you have to make sure that it goes under. Otherwise, it won't work. I'm having the same problem again of the two front pins being just a little long. I will work this out. There. How do you feel about that? Perfect. I'm just going to test it on the bench, and if it works well on the bench, that's going to be good for me. Bring my 2 leads. Yeah, runs amazing. I always test both sides. Yeah, it's so smooth. That's incredible. Such a joy to run these. Alright, next step is going to be working on the custom paint. My engine came back from the paint shop. Very shiny. And now we're ready for some decals. I like micro scale, and I've got a leftover set here that I can use. And this, you can do more than one engine with this, obviously. So I'm going to cut out the numbers that I need, and we'll get ready on installing the decals. Now it's time for decals. So I just line it up and I slide it in with my my toothpick. Just like that. And I will use a bit of microsol on it. Now the paint feels dry to the touch, but it still has a little bit of thinner. That's gonna draw in the decal, but the microsol also helps. So I'll put a little bit on that. You could leave it like that, freshly shot, but I'm gonna go an extra step and put some dull coat on it. While I'm waiting for my dull coat to dry, I'm going to read you from this old model railroad Craftsman from 1969. It's December 1969, and the cover's in color, but everything else is black and white. This is something that I've never seen before. Enclosed New York Central shades. I didn't know that existed. So that's kind of neat. Looks like this would be a project that would be doable in N scale. I don't know if you guys are interested in that or not. The other good article in this is the Lima Locomotive Works. I saw a super cool video on that the other day. I'm going to reference that in the description. Some of the ads that are interesting. These old Viking cars and trucks, although they're very European, they still hold up today. They look pretty good. Here's some more ads so you can see the price of stuff 50 years ago. With the dull coat, it looks much more professional. Now all I have to do is put the handrails and the windows back on. Before I put my handrails back on, I wanted to do the couplers before. I'm gonna secure them with some crazy glue, which might not be 100% the best, but it's gonna work and it's easy. I put just a very, very small amount, as little as I can. That way if I need to go back and work on this, it will be okay. There. How do you like the contrast between the black and the brown plastic? That adds a bit of realism for me. I really like this. I also have to remove my little masking white glue there so that I can see my lights again. So that should be good. Now all that's left to do is put the shell back on. Let's see how that fits. Oh, it's a little tight. Perfect. And now it's time to run some trains. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I certainly had fun making it for you. See you soon.